Hello and welcome to GameSack. This week we're focusing entirely on a game called Outrun.
That's right, another episode dedicated completely to a Sega game. Why, Joe? Why?
Oh, come on, man, you were there. We decided this last week at the end of the episode. We're going to focus on Outrun this week. Come on.
Oh, well, you're right, I guess so. But anyways, it's a good game, so...
Yes, it is, so let's get to it. In 1986, Sega blessed the world with Outrun.
This is true. I remember my inner Nintendo fanboy wouldn't let me enjoy Outrun at the time. I should have killed that guy a long time ago. I would have enjoyed my gaming life a lot more than I did.
Well, everyone enjoys life a little more with a splash of Sega. Anyway, this is your typical checkpoint-style racing game where you try to beat the clock. You drive a red car that happens to be a Ferrari Testarossa. The game really moves fast and features smooth hills and tons of scaling roadside objects.
Too bad the majority of the objects are the exact same thing.
Like you'd have time to appreciate every single roadside object if that weren't the case. But what made Outrun unique was the ability to choose your path at the end of every level. You also get to choose between 3 different songs at the start of each race. All of them are classics done by the very same guy responsible for the fabulous music from Sword of Vermilion. I can't decide if I like Passing a Breeze or Splash Wave best.
I enjoy Passing a Breeze. It makes me feel really good inside.
Outrun was first ported to the Sega Master System in 1987. It retains much of what made the arcade version great, such as the selectable paths and multiple music tracks.
And how many mega power does this game have, Joe?
It only had 2 mega power, and maybe that's why the hills in the game are really choppy. For some reason, Sega just couldn't figure out how to do smooth hills like games on the NES did. It wasn't a limitation of the Master System because Road Rash had smooth hills. Anyway, other than that, this version is fun to play and has the perfect amount of difficulty. In fact, I even used to record all of my high scores back in the day each time I beat the game, so I was constantly challenging myself. I do find it kind of funny how when you go underneath the pillars or come to a checkpoint, your car moves from side to side instead of the road moving. It feels kind of awkward.
Yeah, you know what else is awkward? When a section of a track has a lot of hills and you can't see the road in front of you. This causes a lot of wrecks for me. Still, a must own for the Master System.
The PC Engine version of Outrun was released only in Japan and never brought over to the US for the TurboGrafx 16. That's a shame because I think it would have been a great addition to the library here. At first, the game kind of reminds me of the Master System version because of the purplish blue stripes on the road, but that's where the similarities end. The hills are smooth and... wait, what is that buzzing noise? Is there a bee flying around in here? Oh, that's the engine noise. Let's just turn that off, shall we? Haha, much better. Anyway, this version has great sounding stereo music, decently animated roadside objects, though there is some flicker when you're driving underneath the pillars.
One thing that is different is the game information is outside of the gameplay screen.
Yeah, NEC Avenue loves to do that. Overall, this version is pretty damn faithful to the arcade and it's definitely worth tracking down.
Really? Maybe I'll have to check into this.
Here, Dave, just have my copy.
Thanks, Joe. And I didn't even get you anything.
That's okay, I'll just sneak over to your house and help myself to something. The Genesis version of Outrun is programmed by Hertz.
Hertz? The same guys that rent cars?
Clearly it must be. I mean, this is a car game, and what else would Hertz make a game about? Anyway, this version is pretty good, but the graphics are a bit darker than the arcade.
Yeah, it's dark, but it's very colorful. I love the color palette in the Outrun series.
Also, the track layout is based on the Japan version and not the overseas.
I thought I noticed some discrepancies in the tracks.
That's right, there are actually 2 different ways that tracks are ordered in an Outrun game, with the most popular being the overseas layout. You don't even get an option to switch them here.
Who decides which tracks are most popular?
I don't know, but I'm curious that a Japanese only release like the PC Engine version featured only the overseas layout. Suffice it to say, the layout here is strange to me and it just doesn't seem as good as the overseas layout. I'm not even sure why there would be a difference in layouts in all honesty. Anyway, the music sounds great here for the most part, and we even get a new track called Step On Beat. It's okay and certainly not horrible, but it doesn't compare to the original tracks. Outrun made it to the Game Gear, and despite having nearly identical hardware to the Master System, this game was remade from scratch. The road only has 2 lanes at most now, and the first level actually has the water over there on the left. They even redid the music, and some parts of it are even in stereo.
Ooh.
The hills here are even choppier and look kind of sad.
Don't forget the watered down colors from the Game Gear's awesome screen.
Overall, it's still kind of fun to play though. Like Afterburner, Outrun is part of the Sega Classics collection on the Game Boy Advance.
This sure came out a lot better than Afterburner did, and it's actually fairly fun.
Yeah, it looks like the scaled down version of the arcade for the most part. Everything moves smoothly and it controls quite well. Even the music sounds fantastic, considering the hardware. I was pleasantly surprised how much I enjoyed this one.
If you want to play Outrun while you're on the toilet, this is the version to play.
Outrun on the Sega Saturn is part of the Sega Ages collection in the US. It is, from what I can tell, a perfect port from the arcade and even better in some ways. What? Better? That's right. Not only do you get everything the arcade offered in 100% perfect glory, but you can switch between the Japan and overseas track layouts, but you can even input a code to enable a smooth mode. That's right, the makers of this port didn't think the arcade was smooth enough, apparently. The smooth mode lets you run the game at 60 frames per second, whereas the arcade is 30 frames per second. Not that you can tell here on YouTube. And if you happen to own the Japanese version of this game, which came on a single disc, you can also listen to some arranged music. The US version even mentioned that they removed this music in the manual. Look at that. What are we missing in the US? Here, take a listen.
You know what I love about the music tracks in Outrun? Not only do they have great composition, but the tracks are very long, so you don't have to listen to the track looping again and again for the entire race. It's just outstanding.
Overall, the Japanese version of this release is the best you can buy, and the US version is damn awesome as well, so don't pass it up. Like Afterburner, Outrun shows up in Shenmue 2 as a playable arcade game. It's also on the Yu Suzuki Gameworks Volume 1. This version is emulated instead of ported, so like Afterburner, the music sounds a bit different. Maybe it's just bad sound emulation? I don't know. Also, look at the car. That's no Testarossa. They must have had some licensing issues or something when this one was made. Sometimes a graphical glitch may appear, but it's pretty rare.
You know, I used to own that Yu Suzuki Gameworks. I wonder why Nintendo hasn't released a Shigi Miyamoto Gameworks.
Outrun was remade under the 3D Ages banner for the PlayStation 2.
Oh no, not another one. These never turn out well.
3D polygons replace everything here. The first thing you'll notice is how giant and absolutely disgusting your car looks. Look at that. No one would want to buy something that looks like that and is clearly not a Ferrari. I'd rather putz around in a Ford Pinto than be seen in this giant red turd.
How about a brown Ford Escort?
Maybe you're trying to insult me by referring to my old brown Ford, Dave, but that was a Tempo. Much, much worse than an Escort. But aside from the ugly car, this version turned out pretty good, unlike Afterburner. Even though the graphics are very low-budget 3D polygons, I find myself wanting to make it to each stage just to see how it looks.
Then you end up laughing, right?
Well, I certainly don't jump up and cheer. The control is done really well and it feels great. You can choose between the original music tracks or newly arranged versions which sound really good. You can also choose between Japan and overseas modes as well. Also featured is an arranged mode of the game where you're racing against rivals. Anyway, this mode features a bunch of new tracks. This one right here reminds me of Outrunners, which we'll talk about later. Damn, how many rivals do I have? Overall, this is a surprisingly good version of the game and can be found for cheap in the US on the Sega Classics collection.
Well, Joe, that takes care of Outrun proper.
Yeah?
What more do we have?
Well, we've got a lot of spin-offs and even a true sequel to show.
That's awesome. I expect absolutely nothing but excellence from any game with the Outrun name on it.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
What are you talking about? I mean, all Outrun games are excellent.
While Outrun 3D on the Master System had some of the original tracks, it was mostly its own unique game. You can play in 2D by pressing the pause button at the title screen. Since this is a 3D game, everything is smaller and choppier than the original Master System port of Outrun, since the system has to basically do twice as much. The game feels pretty sluggish, and it really isn't a great experience in my opinion.
Well, I actually kind of like it. It's easier than other Outrun games thanks to it running slower and the sprites being smaller. It's like Outrun 3D, kids version.
As far as the music goes, only Magical Sound Shower made it over. The rest of the music is all new, and it really isn't anything memorable. The 3D effect isn't bad in most levels, but some levels are colored in a way where there's a lot of ghosting. Unfortunately, this game never came out in the US. It could be worse, but it certainly could be much better.
You know, a remake for the 3DS would be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, and it'd sell at an $8 minimum on Nintendo's overpriced online store. Turbo Outrun was an arcade upgrade to the original Outrun. Now you can fire a turbo for extra speed once it's charged. Your car is red, and that's pretty much the only similarity it has to the original Outrun. Gone are the branching paths and the selectable music.
I lost interest already. We can move on now.
Oh, no, we don't. Anyway, that's not to say that what is here isn't good, because it is. You drive across cities in the US. Hey, here's Pittsburgh. I know a guy in Pittsburgh, and he tells me this is exactly how it looks in real life. So kudos to Sega for getting every detail of every city down perfectly. This game is pretty fun, and some of the music is really cool too. You can buy more parts after a certain number of tracks, but overall this game is pretty damn tough. The Genesis version is just awful. It was never released in the US, so technically it's only a Mega Drive game, and that's okay by me. The graphics are seriously gimped out and just look horrible. The music is atrocious and is probably one of the worst sounding games on the system. The control is really bad as well, very sloppy. It's a sad little game, and I suggest that you stay far, far away.
Why do game companies release broken games? It's a shame that the good name of Outrun has this pimple on his face.
Battle Outrun on the Master System is basically Sega's version of Chase HQ. Your goal is to chase down a law-breaking scoundrel and bash his car until he gives up. Just look at the exceptional artwork depicting these criminals. What sucks is that the traffic consists of only two types of yellow cars, many of them just aiming straight for you with the exception of the bosses. Nobody can stay in their lanes in this game. It's very, very, very annoying, especially during the later boss battles. Midway through the level, you drive up to a truck where you can upgrade the parts of your car. You can start from any level in the game except for the last one, and you have unlimited continues. The graphics really aren't that great, even for its time. Apparently, hills don't exist in this world. They couldn't even name the music this time. Which one is my favorite? Was it 82.4 or was it 74.6? I can't recall. And look at this guy's nasty old hand. Does he have fingernails on his knuckles? What the hell? Anyway, the music isn't bad at all, but it's not very memorable either. And, of course, your car is red, so that means it qualifies as a true Outrun game.
I always wonder why companies just tack one of their franchises to a game that's barely related. Battle Outrun doesn't feel like Outrun to me.
Honestly, you're better off playing Chase HQ. Here's Outrun Europa on the Sega Master System. Just what the hell is this? Why did anyone let US Gold make console games? This has nothing to do with Outrun. You start off chasing criminals in what amounts to a poor man's road rash. You can punch other bikers and naturally they explode. The graphics are ultra choppy, but the roadside objects look pretty good despite that. Eventually, you get to control a boat. Now, I can't get very far in this game, so I can only assume that you'll eventually get to control a red car somewhere, thus making this a true Outrun game.
Maybe somebody stole your red car. That's how it ties into Outrun, I guess. Ultimately, this is a Road Rash ripoff. The game is truly difficult and is kind of fun, but please, please don't call it Outrun.
In 1992, Sega released Outrunners to the arcades. This was usually set up in huge multiplayer units featuring anywhere from 2 to 6 or even more players. The game is awesome. It's super fast and you can switch music on the fly. It's just great. Naturally, you can drive from the Grand Canyon to South America in a matter of seconds. There are tons of stages to choose from if you can get far enough, and it's pretty tough. There's even a laugh track when you crash.
Oh, I hate it when they laugh at me. It makes me feel so low.
A worthy update to the Outrun formula and great fun if you can find an arcade machine. Now, the Genesis version is laughable in comparison. Everything is obviously scaled way back. It can still be pretty fun, but what I don't like is that the screen is always split and I'm always racing on a computer who constantly gets in my way. The game is damn tough too. It also has some really bad scratchy audio. Still, it does try to replicate all of the stages and most of the features from the arcade though.
I enjoyed this one despite its massive amount of unacceptable problems. Yes, the audio is super scratchy and you are stuck with the split screen. I found it to be a little easier and had no real problems winning against my opponent. One thing I really like is the fact that you can change your music on the fly with the push of a button.
Outrun 2019 for the Genesis, sometimes also known as Junkers High, is an original game made by Sims. No red car here that I can find, but it does have selectable tracks. This game takes place 7 years from now and is clearly an accurate prediction of what the year 2019 will really be like.
What a great time it's going to be alive! I can't wait!
Too bad they don't name Outrun games like they name sports games based on the year, otherwise they could just take that year off since this game already exists. Anyway, the game itself is actually pretty fun. It has some elevated tracks which you can fall or jump off of and a booster which activates once your meter gets high enough. The graphics aren't too special, but they're not bad. The music is somewhat decent. It just doesn't seem like an Outrun game to me. No happy blue skies, no gentle palm trees. But, maybe palm trees will be extinct by the year 2019.
Yeah, I didn't get the Outrun vibe either. It's a fun racing game, but it doesn't feel much like Outrun.
In 2003, Sega released Outrun 2 to the arcades and brought it home the next year to the Xbox. This game is a true sequel and is awesome in every way. For one, the graphics are just incredible.
That they are.
They really took their time in crafting the stages to look as awesome as possible.
In my humble opinion, this is the best looking racing game for that generation. There is a ton of visual depth to the tracks. The game is fast, but not fast enough that you can't enjoy the environments while you are racing.
And since this game really emphasizes drifting around corners, you'll spend probably half your time driving sideways. The music is great as well, with arranged versions of the original music and a couple of new tunes that are also pretty good. There are 2 tunes with lyrics though that I don't particularly care for.
Ugh, I don't like them either. I don't need singing in my game music, ever.
There are also new objective-based modes to add to the replayability.
Yeah, and these are actually really fun to play, not like the usual fillers companies tack on.
Lots of stuff to unlock as well, like tracks from Daytona 2 and Scud Racer, though they don't really lend themselves well to Outrun 2 style racing. Still a great bonus though. The only thing I don't care for here is that it takes forever to switch stages. From the moment the branching path appears, it's almost 20 seconds before you reach the actual checkpoint. That's 20 seconds of driving between some boring concrete walls. But otherwise, this game is absolutely fantastic. The next year, Sega released Outrun 2 SP, which is more than just a simple upgrade. This came home as Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. This is the Xbox version here, although it also came out on the PlayStation 2 and even the PSP, which runs at half the frame rate but is still quite good.
I have the PS2 version.
Well, good for you.
Thanks.
The game features all new tracks to race on in addition to the 15 original tracks. What more could you ask for? How about being able to slipstream behind enemy cars now? There are even tons of other minor tweaks as well. I do feel the control in this game is noticeably twitchier than the original Outrun 2, and I'm not too fond of that change.
The game is still ultimately playable though. Just like in Outrun 2, the power slide is very easy to use and really helps gain an edge against your true rival, the clock.
Really, you can't go wrong with this game and everyone should own it.
No, everybody better own it. Even if you are a Nintendo fanboy like me, there's absolutely no reason for you not to own this game.
How far are you going to take me?
All the way.
Outrun Online Arcade for the Xbox 360 is basically Outrun Coast to Coast without many of the extras. The Heart Attack mode and the 15-course race are still here though, as well as the online multiplayer.
Is this on the PS3 also?
It's not on anything anymore. Sega's Ferrari license expired. It was on the PS3, but only in Europe.
Oh.
And don't you dare try to play it if you're not logged into Xbox Live, otherwise it only lets you play the trial version for some reason. So if Xbox Live ever goes away for any reason, you no longer own this game. It's unrealistic to think that Xbox Live will be around forever. It went away for the original Xbox after all. Anyway, the polygon graphics are now in HD and they look amazing, though they looked great to begin with, so that's really no surprise. The HUD still seems to be in 480p and upscaled, as it certainly isn't as crisp as the rest of the game. The sound suffers a bit as well due to the 350 megabyte limitation Microsoft was imposing at the time. But still, it is a great version of the game.
I would totally buy this if it was $10 or less.
It was 800 Xbox points.
I want to go ahead.
And those are all of the Outruns that we could get a hold of.
Yes, and most of them were good, but not all of them were excellent.
Well,
that's
of course
for sure.
not all of them were excellent, but yeah.
Well, anyways, Sega, I've got a request for you. I want you to make a brand new Outrun game in true HD for either this generation or next generation. Do you have the sack to do it?
Oh, let's see if they do, because you know they're watching, you know they are.
I know they are. All right, well,
We'll be back next week, and actually we have absolutely no idea what we're going to cover, so you'll find out with us.
yes, TBA.
Hey Dave, did you see earlier in the video that my scores from the original Outrun? This is what I was doing in 1988, my friend.
Dude, that's awesome. You know how awesome that is? But in 1988, you know what I was doing? I know you're keeping track of all your game scores and all that, but check this out. This is what I was doing in 1988. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, I know you downloaded this from the internet.
That is not true. She's hot. I still love you.